for meeting me today.
Okay, Sukhi Hotu.
Venerable Raluwe Padmasiri. So you are here in Sri Lanka. We're in your office now.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you can share a little bit of background. Who are you?
Yeah.
And how did you come here?
Okay. I am a Theravada Buddhist monk. I belong to Southern tradition of Buddhism. And to recall some of the past memories of my life of the monkhood, and I ordained as a monk at the age of 13. And then I completed my primary and secondary education and monastic education. And after that, after my graduation, and I became a teacher of some monastic colleges. And few years later, I became a university teacher, and I have been teaching in several universities. And finally, I became a lecturer at the Postgraduate Institute of Pali and Buddhist Studies, University of Kerala in Sri Lanka. And then personally, I am one of the members of the Sri Lankan Buddhist monk, and we are considered to be continue our life throughout, continue our training throughout our life, and therefore we are supposed to continue entire life for the welfare of the world and for the benefit of me from Dhammic point of view. And that's the basic information of me.
Yeah, so you chose, Venerable, the path of academia, academic practice, yes?
Yeah, generally, mostly I am, I would like to call me as an academic Buddhist monk. On the other hand, I have not abandoned the monastic training plus the monastic practice too.
Yeah, so how do you balance that, the monastic practice and the academic path?
Yeah, that's a complicated, something we have to be careful. And if we, how I think, and first I will explain how I think on it. And if I take only one part, and then I may feel a lack of the other side. And therefore I have to care monastic activities regarding the practices of my monastic, and then my master is also Buddhist monk, and he has some expectations and some kind of the duties are expected from me, and I do follow them. On the other hand, in several now dissemination of knowledge, not only academic, even for the non-academic, and we have to pass our knowledge, and time to time we have to participate for the practices, and then learning, practicing, sharing, and being a part of the big society. And this is the way that how we balance it. And it is not only me. Generally, most of the Buddhist monks who are supposed to be academic, and they are not pure academics, and they try to balance it. And there are differences, but still we try our best to keep that balance.
Yeah. Venerable, you said something to me before that was really fascinating.
Okay.
You said that there's the path of Nibbana. People want to be free from the suffering, from samsara and Nibbana. And then there's the path of existence.
Okay.
Can you tell me, what is the path of existence?
Yeah. According to Buddha's teaching in the early Buddhism and the later Buddhism also, there's a very commonly recognized stanza. It is called Appakate Manupetu Ye Jana Paragamino Atayamitra Paja Thiramevam Dhavati. It directly says, out of the many people, only very few people are interested in the enlightenment. Even though many are interested on the way of their journey, and they just abandon and come back. And therefore, majority of the world are interested in this circle of life, and we use the Pali term called samsara, and then what we mean cyclic life. And therefore, when we come to this path of existence, actually, we have to understand this idea from 2 points of view. Number one, from the conventional point of view. The other one is the philosophical point of view. So when we come to the doctrinal and philosophical point of view, the Buddha clearly says, our path is in between existence and non-existence. Existence and non-existence. There are two words called bhava and vibhava. One is desire to exist. The other one is desire to distinguish or desire to, stop. Desire to stop. And therefore Buddha says, okay, Buddhist path is in between this desire to continue and desire to stop. And that is where we find in the most of the suttas a very particular term called Majjhima Desana, Majjhima Patipada. And that is the middle path and middle philosophy. And therefore Buddhist path of existence, what I mean is in between this desire to stop plus desire to continue endlessly. And that is the major point. And therefore, generally if someone asking, okay, whether you are interested in going through endless samsara, endless circle of life, I think majority of Buddhists say no. But if they say, do you want to stop now? And majority say no. And then this is the existence in Buddhism, according to my understanding of the Dhamma, is in between these two extremes.
So that sounds like that is the middle way that
Yeah.
Buddha taught,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So is this different from the 31 planes of existence or the 3 realms of existence? Can you talk on that?
Okay.
Venerable?
Yeah, according to again early Buddhism and the later Buddhism too, this existence 31 existence of realms is a recognized concept in Buddhism. And again, it is actually discussing about the entire circle of life. But Nibbana, now the question is, where is the place that is given for the Nibbana? Nibbana means, actually I have translated, it is the Sumambonam of Buddhism, emancipation, or the realization, and that are the translation we can take. Then when we are going to relate the existence of within 31 existences and Nibbana, and again first we have to understand, okay, what does it mean existence in different realms, and what does it mean 31 realms. So very basically this existence of 31 realms is divided into 3. We know that, right? Divided into 3. Then supreme level and the super level and the no ordinary level. And when we come to the supreme level, that are the places we call it, there are 20 realms where supreme deities exist. And anyone, either you or me or anyone else, okay, if they are interested in going to be part of that existence, that is also being there. That means it is also part of this cyclical living. And then another, after now we have 31, out of 31, 20 is supreme. And again there are 6 more is deities, we can throw very simply. They are called deities, they are not supreme deities. And below that we have the human existence and low existences. And therefore when you ask, okay, where my location is and how we are going to relate, and my basic idea is, okay, Buddha has directly suggested that the lower realms are going to be very much difficult from the mundane and supramundane meaning, and both. And therefore everyone is supposed to exist beyond the human level. And therefore the human plus deities and supreme deities should be the goal of someone who has some knowledge on the Dhamma. And if we go down, according to Buddhism, and then bottom of this existence will be like animals, hell living beings, and the ghosts, and like that. And therefore when we come to the doctrinal explanation of the what does it mean of 31 realms and middle path, so Buddha told philosophically we have to understand, if we are careful about this in understanding of the world in the middle level, then it is called dependent coordination. On the other hand, when we come to the tactical path, it is called eightfold path. and philosophical plus practical. And then when we can, as a human being, I think we are supposed to understand both of them and balance it. And then if we can understand, follow Eightfold Path based on the dependent origination, that knowledge, and then we can go to the higher level. That means then we can avoid going lower levels. And that's the basic idea, I think. If I didn't make sound, okay, you can answer.
Thank you, Venerable. So, is it actually possible in this lifetime for ordinary people to be free from suffering?
Okay, this is a very good question. And now, whether mundane person, ordinary person, like you and like we can say, okay, ordinary human, very simply we can say worldly being. We use the term worldly being, Pali word is putujjana, and can attain this happiness, or whether they are able to attain, remove the suffering, right, in the basic sense. If we go to eradication of entire suffering, I think it is one business, it is the ultimate. And the other one is, while living in this world, being an ordinary human being, having good rationality, having good understanding, having ordinary correct human formation, Buddha says, yes, we can. Then the second question will be how. The how is, Buddha says, to understand this teaching of the Buddha, we have to understand how Buddha defined the human being. The Buddha defined the human being based on our psychological and the rational activities. So Buddha says there are threefold unwholesome roots and threefold wholesome roots in our mind. And the more we can evaluate, if we can minimize threefold unwholesome aspect, and if we can maximize threefold wholesome roots, and that is the basic point where we can understand we are going up, or we are going to minimize our suffering. And therefore, from the mundane sense, what we can do is we can minimize suffering based on the understanding plus and trying to minimize those threefold unwholesome roots. And when we say greed, hatred and delusion is the English translation of this term. And when we say greed, there are different levels, and we know in any psychological kind of position or status, there are different levels. So when we say greed, it is the intensive greed that is going to be harmful. But if it is going to be something like middle level greed, then it can be considered as a part of the existence. And therefore, these threefold wholesome aspects are, we can say, they are the middle level. And if we can come to the middle level of this threefold wholesome roots of the mind, and that is the place where we can understand as we are going to minimize the suffering. But on the other hand, if you ask, another question, there will be some counter question, like I will raise the counter question also.
Yes.
Then are there some doctrinal supportive for that? Buddha says yes. For example, one example, when we take the first fold aspect of the Eightfold Path, it is called right view, right understanding. In the right understanding, the Buddha has said it is again divided into mundane, supramundane. And when we go to mundane level, if we have basic belief about the existence, for example, if we say, I believe I have a mother, there are tenfold basic belief. And if someone believes I have a mother, therefore I have to respect my mother. I have a father, I have to respect my father. And likewise, having this mundane belief is considered mundane aspects of right view. And therefore, Buddhist Eightfold Path is always divided into two, supreme level and the mundane level. And therefore, if we want to, attain and maintain that mundane happiness and minimize the suffering, the Buddha has clearly said. And one particular example is the discourse of 40 in the middle length discourses, and we will find there exactly says the Eightfold Path can be divided into two, and the one aspect is mundane, worldly, the other aspect is supramundane. And therefore, if we are interested in having somewhat called a mundane life with more happiness, less worry, and in that case, okay, we have to come to this track.
Thank you, Venerable. So what is supermundane right view?
Okay, supermundane right view is called, okay, according to the suttas, okay, the more we work for the enlightenment, to eradicate unwholesome, and having what we call having the desire plus having the knowledge to eradicate all these defilement, unwholesome, is called supramundane, and that is the basic. And therefore, I mean in reference to the first fold, right view. Yeah. That is in relation. We have to understand this in relation to Nibbana. If we are working based on the Nibbana, understand the world based on that. Again, we know that the three signata are there. For example, three characteristics. Understand there is no self and the changing aspect. And then having that knowledge is considered more supramundane level.
So you say Venerable no self. Somebody who doesn't know Buddhism, how can they understand no self?
Yeah. Then this is the idea that I think Buddhism become unique because of this anatta teaching or non-self teaching. And therefore the basic idea was, okay, self means everyone knows, okay, what does it mean? It is a part of the identity. And then many believe there's an eternal identity that never changes. The Buddhism believe in identity with some changes. That means constant process with constant changing. And therefore, if we ask, okay, how we can empirically understand that? And therefore Buddha explained this matter very simply in a logical way. Buddha says, okay, if something is self, it should be, you should be able to control by yourself. For example, if I take myself, okay, I am a young person, I don't want to become old. Then if I have an unchanging identity, I must be able to be young forever. But I cannot keep my youngness forever because it is changing continuously, constantly. And therefore Buddha says the non-self means, does not say there is no any self. There is an existence, right? There is an survivor, there is an continuation. But the continuation is not unbroken. It is broken, constantly changing existence. On the other hand, we can say, but they are not within our control. If anything is not within our control, we cannot say it or that or anything. It is never changing identity. And therefore we have identity, but what Buddhism rejects is never changing identity or belief that there is an self or something never changes.
So it sounds like, Venerable, an easy way maybe for me to understand could be, one time when I was born, I was an infant.
Okay.
And the body has changed.
Yes.
So the same self is no longer there. Is that correct? And now we become students. We become college, university students, professionals, etc. This is the impermanent nature of the human. Correct? Old age.
Yes. And both aspects, cycle and now Buddhism discuss this matter from two senses, again the matter and the psychology. And the mind also changing, there's no argument, I think. Always we know that our mind is monkey mind, there all these tragic things occur. And physically also we are changing, psychologically also we are changing. And therefore this constant changing can be seen easily through our body. But constant changes that occur in psychology cannot be seen by others, but we ourselves can observe, reflect, just by referring to the early minute of our life and the present minute and the next minute. And therefore momentum, understanding the changes that occur moment by moment, minute by minute, then it explains, okay, this non-self is the idea that Buddhism has has been promoting.
Yeah, so Venerable, you mentioned 3 unwholesome roots, the greed, hatred, and delusion. What will counter that? What are the 3 wholesome roots? How can one practice to eradicate the poisons?
Okay, then, what are the first let's understand, what are the 3 wholesome aspects. Number 1, in Pali, there are 3 words, very popular words, and alobha, adosa, amoha. But they are called negatively meant terms. But we can understand its positive sense. Alobha means charity, right? Generosity. And adosa means the loving kindness, opposite of the hatred. And amoha means wisdom. And therefore we have generosity, we have loving kindness, we have wisdom. And the more we are cultivating these 3 aspects, means we are moving more to the final Nibbana, we are improving our personality. And therefore, when we take one example, how we can improve our wisdom, right? In Buddhism, and the ultimate wisdom is understanding the world or realizing the world according to the change in perspective. We can say things are changing. If I can, different levels are there, right? First level, I can perceive things are changing. That is a perception. And then after the perception, we have to go to more cognitive levels. And there we can say, when I train myself for a long time to see things as changing, and with the cultivation of my personality, with the meditation of any other way, then there's a tendency occur within myself, a training occur within myself to understand anything as something changing. And this is the way to improve my wisdom. And then if I can understand any experience, any situation with the perspective of the changing, and that is the part of improving our wisdom. But if we go to real situation, real scenario of the Buddha's life, we can say, let's go to the biography of the Buddha, and whether Buddha used his wisdom to understand the world suddenly, or whether he also wanted to reflect. This is a good question. And then we know that we have seen in the biography of the Buddha, he never have been panicked in relation to any situation he faced. And why he could suddenly understand, realize any situation. What the problem of the ordinary human being is, we cannot do that. We need time, it takes time, and sometimes if we are not trained, sometimes we cannot get that wisdom suddenly. And therefore, if I come into your question directly again, and how we can develop wisdom, and therefore gradual training is the one part. And therefore attitude change is needed, some knowledge aspect is needed, and the practical use of our faculties are needed, and continuous perseverance and the dedication is needed. And if we can do this with the knowledge, and that will be possible for some extent. But we don't say within this mundane structure we cannot eradicate entirely, but we can minimize unwholesome, we can increase the wholesome, and it's a gradual path according to most of the discourses.
Yes, and so Venerable, this is a really big blessing because you're a Theravada monk, and me being in the Mahayana tradition, I know with the paramitas, we have in the Mahayana tradition 6, and in Theravada there's 10. Is this the way, the gradual path, the gradual training? Can you talk if there's a connection to that?
According to Theravada tradition, this idea, this teaching of the perfection, paramita, is actually limited to the person who is aspiring for the supreme Buddhahood. And doctrinally, and Theravada accept perfections are for the Buddha and not for the ordinary human being. But historically, it has become part of the disciple also. If we, one example just to tell you, if we see the biographies of the Sri Lankan Theravada monks that who lived in the past. On the other hand, if we read some of the biographies of the kings who lived in Sri Lanka, they have been trying to fulfill the perfection, and therefore even though doctrinally, even though we say doctrinally that perfection is only for the Buddha, but it has become a part of the practice even of the Theravada disciples. And if we are coming to my personal understanding and what I find, I also think yes, we are also going to, we are also fulfilling a kind of practice or the perfection. And therefore, according to Theravada and Mahayana, I think the both traditions believe there are different levels of the perfection. In Buddhism, if we take the first perception called the sacrifice, and that the first level will be like, okay, just sacrificing whatever we have material, and therefore we are doing that. But doctrinally, from the doctrinal point of view or discipline point of view, we don't have very strong justification to say Buddhist disciples are supposed to practice it. But it has become a part, okay, we believe I gradually develop, I gradually fulfill some of the perfection. And that aspect is there. But I think doctrinally and based on the basic writings, and we cannot justify it.
So one who wants to practice the path of existence, one who wants to be free from the suffering, but yet be in the world, how can they practice?
Okay, you asked about someone else, right?
Someone else, not monks, not nuns, but just normal people.
Okay. And it is about the practicing the path of the Dhamma, right?
Practicing the Dhamma,
yes.
And the people who are not Buddhists, can you speak to that better?
Actually, it's a good question, and our real question is whether non-Buddhists and who don't need to be labeled as Buddhist practice Dhamma, right? Is happiness can be achieved by them also? This is the question, right? Yeah. There's one good example given by the Buddha in one particular discourse called Apannaka Sutta, and the middle length discourse. Someone can refer to that discourse if you are interested. And it is saying that, okay, it doesn't matter whether you are Buddhist or non-Buddhist. And if you know that good is good, bad is bad, and that's the basic level. And therefore first we have to understand this is good, this is bad. This is the primary. And then if we can see that good is good and the bad is bad, and then it is the wholesome and unwholesome, right? And therefore Buddha says there, you don't believe, for example, if you don't believe in next world, still be good. If there's accidentally there may be next world, then you may get the benefit of it. And if you don't think, okay, there's no next world, you become your behavior become more ugly and unwholesome. Accidentally there's a next world, and therefore you may get more unexpected negative result. And the Buddha says, let's do good. Doesn't matter whether there's a next world or not. Let's do good, whether you are Buddhist or non-Buddhist. And the Buddha's idea is, okay, doing good is not limited to any religious person, but understanding and defining the good is the important thing. And therefore, anyone who is interested in being a good person can practice Dhamma.
So how do you define a good person, Venerable?
How do you?
Yeah. How do you personally define what is doing good? What is
From
a good
my
person?
point of view, I would like to emphasize the Buddha, how Buddha defined it. And Buddha defined, how the good person based on his behavior. And we know that there are threefold behavior: verbal, physical, and mental. And then Buddha says, okay, if you are a good person and your words supposed to be very soft, very kind, very compassionate, and persuading others for doing good things, and therefore your words are supposed to be good, civil and generally good in simple sense. And even your physical behavior is supposed to be kind, compassionate, not harming, and non-violent. And therefore, basically, this behavior, someone's behavior, psychological, physical, verbal, should be based on kindness, compassion, non-violence, and helping others. And again, even it may be for the mundane purpose, it may be for the supramundane. For example, you can become, now you may have a child always fighting with you. But still, if you are a father, if you are a mother, if you are a brother, anyone, okay, you can become compassionate towards him through your psychology and your words and your behavior. And that is the way to become good person.
Does compassionate always mean being kind and letting the child get away with whatever?
No, I think from the Buddhist point of view, it is not that way. Buddhist means, I mean the actual doctrinal point of view, right? What I mean here, there's a discourse in Buddhism. Okay, we will come very general idea. Now, Buddha did not allow his monastic members, right? Buddha did not give his monastic members to do whatever they like. Buddha kept some constraints. Buddha postulated some, discipline rules. And sometimes when Buddhist monks broke their rules, and Buddha gave some kind of punishment. And punishment is not the heavy punishment. And we can say Buddha used some strong words. And sometimes Buddha says, okay, don't do this again. And again Buddha says, if you do it, and you better go home. Likewise. And therefore, when we come, okay, just accepting whatever others do is not compassionate. If we are compassionate, we have to educate them. We have to teach them. But the mode of teaching, better to be more compassionate, persuading, enlightening themselves. And instead of accepting whatever they do, having a better understanding of the world and the path of the spiritual progress, we better to educate them, teach them. And that is the path of kindness in Buddhism that I find.
Thank you, Venerable. Venerable, in the West we have many people who want to practice meditation, want to practice compassion.
Okay.
And one obstacle I have heard is they don't have a teacher. So during their practice, they just give up. They acquire obstacles, psychosis, become depressed even, lack of motivation. So for people like that, can you just briefly tell us?
Actually, this is exactly not a very extraordinary, and this is very ordinary. And even the Buddha's time, the same examples are given, same characters we have been seen, and Buddha also have met that kind of people. They came and they talked to the Buddha and they say, okay, I have gone through this experience and I have lost this. And then Buddha was a teacher. Now the issue is there's no teacher, they are practicing alone, and how we can help them when there's no teacher, right? And there's no supporter. And one particular method will be like, we can see there that, okay, let's try to find a practical way. The practical way will be, there's one method that first important thing will be, okay, I should have a perseverance or determination. I do not stop it. And therefore, whatever difficulties I may have, and if I want to find a better result of my practice, the kind of dedication is important, not to stop it. Now, on the other hand, if I feel that I may mislead it, right? I may be misled by some kind of the psychosis or any other kind of thing, and then I think there are many methods for us to clarify that matter. And one method will be finding a good friend. And there are many spiritual friends, I think even throughout the world we are living in a global, we are technologically advanced society, and there are some spiritually advanced groups, there are misleading groups also, but there are some kalyana mitra, we use the term, that means good friends. And before we practicing in that kind of the, very serious kind of the path, better to have some kind of good friends who have gone through that path. On the other hand, at least having to have a good teacher, distance teacher, whoever can be contacted whenever I have a problem, that also will be useful. But if we don't have any teacher, and in that case, I think temporarily stopping that and again practicing, I think will be useful instead of practicing it without, having a good guidance. And guidance is important. And if we don't have guidance, good guidance of a teacher or friend or someone else, if we have encountered some difficulties that I cannot overcome, I personally think stopping temporarily is important, but not forever. And then let's find the path, let's find the person, and let's try to overcome the difficulty. And then there are some other, one more method is there are some retreats and conducted by the people online, and that is easy one. It should not be only Buddhist monk or the nun, and there are lay people also. So having one of this method or any other creative method you can will be useful.
Thank you, Venerable. If anyone has questions for you or needs more resources, can you please tell me what can they access? What resources, or is there any way to contact you at this time?
Regarding for me or for the references?
References, or if they want to learn more?
Actually, what I recommend is the authentic translations of the basket of discourses and the basket of the discipline, and that is the most primary. And there are many translations, and all PTS Paritech Society translation. Plus, there are modern translations by very popular refuted Buddhist monk called Bhikkhu Bodhi. And I think the most authentic way will be going to the original text, and then slowly you can come to the Pali or Sanskrit. Let's go to the translation first. Then, if you want to contact further, I think better to contact for the meditative monks and meditative people. And I don't suggest that very popular to be. But on the other hand, there are people who are not going behind the reputation. There are so many people throughout the world. So we can get the support of them.
Great. Thank you so much, Venerable, for all your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.